Good evening, everyone. Hotep. Happy to be here, especially on the western end of the European world known as the United States of America. We're here to talk about the great Sun Kings and the contributions they've made to the African conversation that's going on now. It'd be my pleasure to introduce to you, to the best of my ability, some of the warfare that's taking place on the continent, which Dr. Carruthers called intellectual warfare. And here in this great state of California, I'm not running for public office, mind you, but I know about the wisdom and power that exists here in this state. Of course, you have Brother Wade Knowles and his lovely wife in the back there. Welcome. And we're in the house that Oba Shaka built. Okay. We were together at the Sixth Pan-African Conference in 1972 when Brother Oba Shaka led that one, and then we also ended up at the conference of the what they call the Conference of Intellectuals of the African Union back in 2004. So we've sort of crossed trails a number of times, not to mention the founding of NBUF with Brother Oba Shaka. So we're really happy to be here. But also for the state of California, you have Brother Rashidi here. Not here in the room, but he's with us. And with these kinds of intellectual warrior activists, there's no reason why we should not provide the kind of leadership here on the West, in the Western region, that is so surely needed with respect to the African struggle that's taking place now. So I really would urge you to give some consideration to the power that you have here and make use of it, make use of the resources that we have, and so that we can be more victorious in this so-called African imperative that stands before us. We're here in what they call the 21st century, and there's those who predict that we may not get out of the 21st century physically as an African people. So we really have a challenge on our hands. And my role here this evening is a recruitment mission. We need more intellectual activist scholars. We need our young people to get on the case. We need our elders to show them the way, or at least follow them in some instances. But more importantly, this is a struggle. It's a struggle for the African mind, and there's no reason why we should not win this struggle. For the very first time, our people can go forward. Now, my task this evening is to talk a little bit about Nubia, or some people call it the kingdoms of Kush, and the great Sun Kings that Dr. John Henry Clark discussed when he said they had their last walk in the sun, when those groups were finally destroyed in terms of their power, but their power is beginning to show again. It seems that the European archaeologists have done everything left that they could possibly do in Egypt, and now they're going further up the Nile, claiming new turfs and new ideas. But we've got some answers for them this time. But some of us have already made contact with our brothers and sisters in the field of archaeology. And my purpose for being here this evening is to bring these two forces together as much as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to begin with a kind of overview of Nubia, as it is called. That is the country, just like this place is called America. But when you talk about the kingdoms or the states, you say the United States of America. We're talking about the Kushite empires of Nubia, the land. Yeah. So let's take a look at this now and get some kind of idea about the purpose and our reasons for doing this. Okay? It's called the sacred cities of ancient Nubia because that's precisely what they were. They were just really a part of the spiritual building of cities, which is what the African way was all about. You didn't simply just go and build a city. You built the cities in harmony with nature, with what the world expected of persons who discovered the harmonies of nature, and the cities grew out of that spiritual kind of existence. And that is why we call them the sacred cities of ancient Nubia. They were buried for the most part after the defeat of so many invaders, to the point where we knew very little about Nubia except where you punctuated Egyptian history with the presence of the Nubian people. Yeah. But our purpose here is to extricate Nubia from the chains of someone else's interpretation and look at it through the eyes of the African world community. So that's our purpose here this evening. Now, I don't need to go into the basic demographics here about the country of the Sudan. It is called today, it's one of the largest countries on the continent. In fact, it is the largest country in terms of size, whereas Nigeria is the largest in terms of population. But as we look here, which I can't see anything, so it's going to be very interesting. Our objectives then is to do what? To recover the missing pages of Nubian history with respect to the whole of the Nile Valley region, which includes Uganda and what we call Ethiopia as well, and Somalia. That's part of the Nile Valley community, which then rushes in through the Sudan and then finally through what we call Egypt, or we call Kemet, on down into the Mediterranean Sea. And I said it like that because many of us have a kind of upside-down view of Kemet. Actually, we think the Nile is flowing one way, and it's actually flowing in another direction. It actually flows down into the Mediterranean. It doesn't flow up towards Uganda or anything like that. And that lake that's mistakenly called Lake Victoria is the water route that plunges all that water down into the valleys that we call the Nile Valley area. Okay, so now the other objective, and there are many of these, is to promote research, writing, and the creation of study groups of the history and culture and civilization of the Nile Valley region. That's what we want to do. We need to do this because it is now the most fashionable thing to do, is to study ancient Nubia. And these archaeologists who were once Egyptologists are now becoming Nubiologists. And all of a sudden they found new grounds for research and new areas to get funding. And now it's a kind of a gold rush, a kind of a scramble of the European archaeologists to be the first ones to expose the new finds regarding the Kushite kingdoms. Okay? All right, so a continuation. We want to set, I said at first, Nubian Studies Institute, but I think we're going to make the Nile Valley Studies Institute. So we're going to make some adjustments on that idea. And the idea of sponsoring trips to the Sudan, which is a challenge, but we managed to bring it off, to get some of our people over there, and I'll discuss some of that with you during the course of our presentation. But I think I better move a little faster. I have how many slides, son? About 40 of these, so we better keep going here. Okay, so now this is where the intellectual warfare has been taking place between the European scholars. I attended the one in Rome, Italy in 2002 at the 10th International Conference of the International Society for Nubian Studies. I think I was the only African American present at that particular conference, under Rokati and what have you. But as a result, I sort of caught on to what they were doing, so I tried to make all of their conferences, and finally ended up going to Paris at the next conference. But at that particular one, we had Brother Lynn Jeffries at that conference, and a couple of other warriors who sat in on it, and we sort of got the rhythm of these groups that meet every 4 years, but actually leapfrog every 2 years. And it was kind of a closed society, studying and preparing themselves for the new scholarship on ancient Nubia. So then the 11th conference, which took place in Poland, we missed, but we did not miss the one in Vienna. So we've had a presence at most of these activities put on by the Europeans. But the most important thing that we discovered, maybe we just go on to the next